They're going.
They're driving to and from school, picking kids up and dropping them off.
Yes. Everyone's healthy and safe.
Fingers crossed. It's so weird to see them driving around. I feel like.
Yeah.
Hey, Maddie?
But Tony's not coming, right, Jay? You're doing that part.
That's right. That's right.
Jen, did you guys start school? Everything going okay?
Yeah, we started last Monday, the 14th.
Okay.
So I said it's going, but it's,
Yep.
it's a lot to try to figure out how to manage it all.
Yeah.
So, and it's weird because we only do, it's, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but I only see the kids one day a week, like in person.
Oh,
And so that's, I think the hardest part is, that's the hardest part. Like
Yeah.
at least in Grafton, like that you might see them shorter, but you see them 5 days a week.
right.
So how's it going, James?
It's going well. How are you?
Good. How was the first week?
It was good. I liked it. Yeah.
That's good.
I
And
like
you
how
were in
positive
person?
you always are, James.
And James, you were in person last week, right? You're remote this week?
Yeah. I had 2 days of remote this week, and I was in person last week.
Yeah.
Right. We still have a few minutes and we're waiting for, it looks like Tracy's coming on or is already on. And Rahul and hopefully Kevin. We can always skip Kevin and come back to him too.
Jay, side question. Do we know why the SATs aren't being held at Grafton anymore?
No idea.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, guys.
Tracy, hi Rahul. Oh, and there's Kevin. Everybody on time. Awesome. Hi, Kevin.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, how are you, Ro?
Hi, Rahul. Kevin, can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear you. We left.
Hmm.
There he is. I went to this event or a Zoom event with Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton, Tina Fey, or not Tina Fey, Maya Rudolph and Amy Poehler. And Amy Poehler kept having all this audio issues. And you could tell she was like, this is like my worst nightmare. I'm like with like my idols and my Zoom isn't working and crazy. So celebs just like us.
What was the Zoom about?
What was it about? It was about saving democracy, Jennifer Connelly.
I was on the Princess Bride table read for the Wisconsin Democrats.
Yeah,
Total technological train wreck.
yeah.
I felt so great. Like, this is what it's like for our teachers and our kids. Yay.
Technology's okay until it's not. Kevin,
Exactly.
I'm going to test you again.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Great.
Excellent.
So I'm just about to go live, but Kevin, I just go through a quick spiel in the beginning, and then we'll get you right on, and then you are free to go when you're
All right.
finished.
Thank you.
So it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. If we were in
Absolutely.
person, I would shake your hand and welcome you to Grafton. So Thank you. And
Thanks.
we'll get going because I think everybody's here. All right.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, and welcome to the September 22nd Grafton School Committee meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:01. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law GLC 30A-18 and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Grafton School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. This meeting is being recorded. And a reminder that anyone who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by visiting the Zoom link on the town site and the Grafton Public School website. We'll need to take attendance and announce all the committee members and school officials on the call. We'll have a roll call vote for all votes. Laura Often here, Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly here.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr here.
Rahul Rati,
All right, here.
Liz Spinney,
Here.
James Dewar.
Here.
All right, James Cummings,
Jay Cummings here.
Tracy Kalo,
Tracy Kalo here.
Kristen Gasper,
Kristen Gasper here.
and Kevin Anderson.
Yeah.
All right, and we also have, I believe, Jack Kelly from Grafton Cable is on the call to record it. Thank you,
And
Jack.
Anita, Laura, and Anita, if you want.
I missed Anita. I'm sorry, Anita. Thank you. Anita,
I'm here.
I'm glad you're here. I'm sorry I missed you. Thank you, Jen. I kind of had this sneaking suspicion, and then I was like, I'll just keep going. Public comment is currently suspended. Our Q&A is open for questions only. We will not be sharing any comments during our meeting. As I've said, our meetings are a time for us to work together and communicate to the public school district plans, policies, and updates. And we ask our viewers at home to continue the same decorum they would use during an in-person meeting. We ask that you hold your questions until after the committee has had time to discuss and ask their own questions, as our questions may be many of yours. To make sure we can get to as many questions as possible, we'll have our clerk, Amy Marr, monitor questions. We'll allow one question and one follow-up per person during our meeting, and any questions that we can't get to, we'll post on our website following the meeting, and we retain the right, or I guess I retain the right to ask anyone to leave who's unable to act appropriately, and we always invite you to reach out to us via our school email accounts or on our GPS budget and coronavirus Facebook page. As we tested last 2 weeks ago, closed captioning is available. You can click the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. Actually, I think that should work. And maybe it's the more. I don't know, but you should be able to do it. I'm seeing that it's live. And also, just before we get started, I'd like to thank everyone for anyone's part in participating in a successful reopening this past week. We have had so much work from everybody in our Grafton Public School community and our students and our parents as well. Can't thank you enough. Definitely seems a little more than a week, but I just wanted to share my appreciation. And with that, I'm going to get right into our first order on the agenda, and I'd love to introduce Kevin Anderson, who is our new athletic director. So welcome, Kevin. If you want to give us a little bit about yourself and why you came to Grafton, we're glad to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for having me. As Laura said, I'm Kevin Anderson. I've been on the job for about a little more than a month now. I've got about 20 years of collegiate athletic experience, and the Grafton athletic director position was one that I was always interested in. So I can't tell you how excited I am to finally get the role and have a chance to get my hands on a lot of different things and really be a positive part of the Grafton community. Did I freeze?
You did freeze a little bit, but we could hear you.
Okay, good.
So we are so glad to have you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Anderson?
I'm just saying welcome aboard and thank you for coming to Grafton. And I know it's not the typical beginning to an athletic as an AD position with the fall sports, but good luck and let us know if you need anything as the year goes on.
I appreciate that. You know, one of the things that has been really great about the start of my position is the willingness of everyone in the community, in the district, to really reach out and extend a hand to help in any way that they're able to. So that's been really great. It's made me feel warm and welcome upon my arrival.
Anybody else?
I just want to state that it's been that Kevin's off to a fantastic start. He's at excellent communication. He took over the very active Twitter feed. He's been communicating through email, in person when he can. Really just off to a tremendous start, and certainly working with the high school administrative team, trying to figure out all of the different issues with the constant changes to the scheduling and all of the safety precautions. So he's really been able to dive right in and do a really nice job. So it's great to have you on board, Kevin.
Thank you, Dr. Cummings. Like I said, everyone's been so helpful, and it's not a typical year that anybody could imagine, but I think James Pignataro and the rest of the staff over at the high school have been exceptional in kind of guiding me and helping me along the way.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I saw, we're able to start with a few fall sports, correct?
Laura, that's correct. Actually, we decided to push the start of sports back a little bit just so that our students can get comfortable in the building and in their surroundings before we dive into another part of the educational process, which is athletics. But we're going to start on October 5th with tryouts and practices for boys and girls soccer, field hockey, boys and girls cross country, and golf. And we'll see where that goes. And that'll let us know, you know, depending on how that goes, it'll let us know what happens with the winter sports.
Right. Yep. One season at a time.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Kevin? Amy.
I just wanted to add, well, welcome to Grafton. I haven't spoken yet, so welcome. It's great to see you and meet you virtually. Are there going to be a middle school sports at all, or are we just not going to even try?
Yeah, Amy, that's a great question, actually. And we made the decision not only as a district, but as a conference, the Southern Worcester County League, not to offer middle school sports this fall, unfortunately. But we're hoping, with our fingers crossed, that will be something that comes back in the winter as well.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming to our meeting tonight. It's great. We were so excited to have you. And I knew a lot about your work from when you were at Dean College, so it's great to have you in town. And if you need anything, you know where we are, so good luck. This is a crazy year, and we're glad to have somebody like you leading us to keep us moving in the right direction. So thank you so much, and thanks for coming tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. And I'm available via email if you have any questions. And that's for anybody in the community as well. I pride myself on being accessible and very communicative. So if anybody wants to reach out, don't hesitate.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, and we're going to move right into a presentation from Dr. Cummings on the building and grounds update, talking about the summer projects, and I'm assuming some of what they did to get prepared for this reopening.
Yes. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So I want to start off by thanking our Director of Buildings and Grounds, Tony LeMay. He helped put the presentation together. He wasn't able to be here tonight, but all of the actual work that I'm going to highlight goes directly to him, to our maintenance staff, and our great custodial staff as well. So I'm going to run through the projects as usual. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. All right, so I just went school by school. I put in a few photos from I think every school except South Grafton, and I was there today and I just forgot to take photos. So at the high school, I think almost all of the stuff that I'm going to cover today is our projects. None of them were huge projects like we've had in some years in the past, but these are all smaller projects that were on our capital improvement plan. So at the high school, we took out those dirt mounds. We had when they built the school, they were hoping to be kind of the fashionable, I guess at colleges, they were popping up with these, they were mounds. I don't know how else to put them. They really didn't get utilized like we were hoping, or as the architect was hoping, and they were an absolute nightmare to mow. In an effort to, over time, to build in more outdoor seating so that on the nice days, even in a normal year, we can have students have more seating outside and be able to eat lunch, go out there throughout the day or after school and utilize that space. That's our eventual goal. And we took out the mounds. We actually used those, the dirt, for a project at the end of last year where we put in a retaining wall. We also, at the bottom photo, you can see that we put in some concrete. Now that we have the buses going around the building, it wasn't that road back there was built as a road, but it wasn't built to handle the turning radius for buses. So we widened the corner over by the press box. So that's been done. So we're in great shape in terms of that access road. At the middle school, after many years of asking for it, we were able to put concrete behind the cafeteria or outside of the cafeteria. If you've been there in the past, it's a nice flat area, but it was always grassy, and the grass would obviously grow. It would get really muddy when you could use it in the fall and the spring. We do have a bunch of really nice, like heavy duty picnic tables so the kids could eat outside. Without the concrete flooring, it was a good effort, but in practice, it really didn't work. So now we've got a big concrete pad out there that we're going to be able to use. We replaced the flooring in our guidance department. It was very old, I have to say. I'm going to guess 20, 30-year-old carpet. So we replaced that flooring, and you may recall that we had a tech ed, or we have a tech ed classroom that looked marginal at best, put it that way. So we finalized our renovation of that space, and you can see it below. I mean, if I did have a before and after, you wouldn't even recognize the space. So it's significantly improved. So that's the middle school. At Millbury Street, we are continuing our effort every summer to replace the tiles on the flooring that pop throughout the year. As you may recall, we've talked about in the past how when the building was constructed back, it's got to be now about 14 years ago, they didn't use enough mastic on the first floor for the tiles, and just over time the tiles pop up, and we've had to just chip away at classrooms and replace those tiles. We replaced the long overdue carpeting in the main office, and over the summer we installed, or we had a company come in and install solar on the roof at Millbury Street. North Street, we also replaced failing tiles in 3 classrooms, and then we repaved or paved a significant chunk of the driveway there. So when you first pull into North Street, that parking lot hasn't changed at this point. Once you head into the back, and what I pictured here is basically the road that connects the front parking lot to the rear parking lot. That, as you may recall, was riddled with frost heaves every winter and potholes. It was just a real mess. So that entire section was redone, and it looks great. At South Grafton, and again, I apologize for not having the photos, we built a new English language learner teaching space. that really wasn't well defined last year. So that's greatly improved upon. We replaced old carpeting in the hallways and the main office, replaced a section of driveway in the back parking lot, and replaced a section of ceiling in the caf area that was failing due to ice dams this past winter. At North Grafton Elementary School, this was most likely our worst, prior to the fix, was our worst piece of pavement in the district. If you've been in the past few years over to North Grafton Elementary School and pulled into the lot, that first about 45 to 55 yards was like a war zone with giant potholes, frost heaves. Again, it was just a tremendous mess. So we paved the very front entrance all the way down into just about the circle at North Grafton. In terms of outdoor spaces, I wanted to, those, what I just reviewed were the work done at the 6 schools. We ordered, as we've talked about, some large tents for some of the bigger schools like the high school and middle school, more than one. We ordered a few for each of the schools. This is right behind the high school, between the high school and the press box and football field. So they are set up. We are going through the permitting process right now. I should have thought ahead. I didn't realize the permitting process would take as long as it does take. We don't have electrical there. We don't have heating. In my mind, it was like putting up a tent, for a backyard wedding, which maybe you need a permit, but I underestimated that. So we're going through that process now. Once we get the permitting, we'll be up and running and we can utilize those tent areas for classroom space, for mask breaks, for additional space for lunches when the weather's good. Obviously, that window that we can count on good weather is shrinking quickly. If we're in the same basic space that we're in, or the same models and the same conditions in the spring, we'd obviously use those tents again in the spring. Back last year, and it seems like ages ago, myself and I think it was Dan at the time brought to you the proposal to go forward with an energy audit. And we have done that. We're meeting, we've been working with Trane. We are meeting with them tomorrow afternoon. We're going to get our first look at the results of that audit. Once I have the finalized report from Trane, we'll share it with school committee and make that public. And then we're going to have to engage with school committee in conversations about next steps, decisions regarding whatever projects we decide to take on, corresponding timelines, any impacts on capital plan, probably work with CIPC, or definitely work with CIPC, certainly update select board, update finance committee. So we're looking forward to seeing what that plan looks like tomorrow. And then I think this is the last slide. I just wanted to make the committee aware that I've been working with the Disability Commission. Roger Trahan's been fantastic to work with, and Daryl Reining. They reached out to me about some grants that are made available at the state level through the ADA. We're going to put in for 2 grants. We're going to put in for a planning grant that would allow, if we were to be able to secure that grant, that would allow us to have a company come in and do a full assessment of the schools. The town, or the municipal side, received one of these grants a year ago and focused, the scope only included the town buildings outside of the schools. So we'd like to go for that same basic grant and focus now on the schools to complete the assessment of the whole town. We're also going to be putting in for a project grant, and that is most likely going to be focused on playground accessibility. In particular, or for certain, that would be at South Grafton Elementary School, where we've been talking about that quite a bit, myself, Tony LeMay, Anita, and previously Dan Gale. So we have that basic project fairly well scoped out, and that's where we're in most need of assistance to get that accessibility. Depending on the scope of the of the grant, like basically how much money we could potentially have access to. If that's more significant, we could add additional accessibility projects, but I'm waiting to hear back from those who manage the grant at the state level. So we've been chipping away at that. Anita and I are going to work on that again at some point tomorrow when we have a chance. And those two grants are both due by October 9th. And yep, that's the last slide, and I can take any questions that people have.
Liz?
Jay, just regarding the grant, just to clarify, so we're applying for them, but we don't know how much money we have possible access to
Correct.
them. There's not a range or anything that's been provided.
Yeah, I could. There's a lot of information provided. I've gone through it now a couple times. I've looked for that range and have yet to find it.
Okay.
So today, when I was working on it, what I did is that they do provide contact information. I reached out to those two contacts just to ask that, to say, do we make it open-ended? Do we go for, is it 300,000? Is it $500,000? Is it 100,000? Because that's obviously going to influence what we put in for. So I'm hoping to hear tomorrow from them.
Okay. Thank you.
Jen?
I can't remember. I know a while ago we were talking about getting handicap access parking at Millbury Street. Was that ever completed?
It was not. No.
What's the timeline for that, or what do we think?
Right now, it's a matter of funding, and that we don't have the funding for it right now. So that would be in the next. I believe that's the case. I can double check with Tony tomorrow, but I think that's going to be in the next round with capital.
So, but can it be used with the grants, or no? Are they separate?
That would go back to. It could potentially. That's going to go back to what the amount is. So if let's just pretend if it's $1 million, which it won't be, but if it was, I would say definitely yes, we could do that, and probably 10 other projects. So once we find out what the financial scope is, that's going to dictate what we can and can't do.
Okay, and I have one more question. I just wasn't sure, like with the, once we have the access to the tents, does the Wi-Fi work out there at least for the middle school and high school, if the classes were brought out there?
Yep, so we're in the process. It was delayed a little bit, but Neil did a really nice job securing, we've already contracted for it. We do have Wi-Fi access points that will service outside of the buildings. It was supposed to be in a couple weeks ago, and they pushed it back of no fault of anybody on our end. So in the next couple weeks, we will have full outdoor access.
Okay, great, thank you.
Amy?
Hi, Jay. I just wanted to ask about the flooring in Millbury Street. Do you have a sense of how close we are to being done? Are we in the middle, or are we still at the beginning? At the end?
I was going to guess probably 75% of the way through, but I'll ask Tony. And the way it's worked out is it's kind of a double-edged sword. Obviously, it would be bad if they all started popping at the same exact time, because we'd have to redo the whole school or that section of the building. It really hasn't played out like that, where last year we thought in the summer we might be okay for a couple more years. And then I want to say it was maybe October, November of last year, and they started popping again. And once the tiles start popping up, we don't have a choice. We've got to replace them. So I will get back to you on that. I'll talk to Tony tomorrow and get just an update that I can provide to you guys, and I'll share it at the next meeting as well.
And does this conclude the total list of capital projects / purchases for the year, or?
I believe so. That's the other piece that I'll check with Tony on. The way it generally works is unless everything came in like under budget, which sometimes they do, and have enough monies left over that we could get to a project that we didn't think we could. I don't recall having that conversation with him, thinking that there's more money to be spent on capital. 99% sure if that was the case, we would have gone ahead and done that project in, June or July.
Okay.
But I'll get back to you guys on those two things.
Rahul?
Jay, coming back to the tents, where do we get the permit from?
I think technically it's building inspector. When I had the conversation, it was with building inspector and fire. I know they both have to take a look at it.
And they're from the town.
Correct. Yep. Yep.
Okay, so it's something to do with the security issues like with the students sitting inside the tents, under the
Yeah,
tents.
I assume how well they're constructed. I know it's distance from the school. They talked to, initially it was, there was something, a lot of places, or if you've ever used these tents, they often have propane, they have sides, electrical. We don't have the propane and we don't have the electrical. We do have sides, but we haven't put them up. So I'm not sure, other than distance and I guess they structurally making sure they're sound. I can't imagine what else has to be looked at, but it's definitely not my area of expertise.
Liz?
Okay, regarding the outdoor space, the new concrete area at Grafton Middle School, do you know if the plan is to put some desks out there for eating, or?
Yeah, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that photo, they may have already done this, but they're gonna move the outdoor tables that they have, and space-wise, we'll be able to have a couple kids at those tables.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have one more. Did we, regarding this may be a little bit off topic, but hopefully, regarding the isolation rooms, did we lose any space that was of significant value by creating those isolation rooms? I know we had to do it, but were there any?
I don't believe so. Kristen, do you know other, I don't want to be not accurate, but the sense I had is obviously none of that was ideal. Kristen went around with Tony LeMay and the nurses and the principal at each school, and they tried to very purposefully pick space that would meet the nursing needs and safety needs, but at the same time not have a dramatic negative effect on us. Is that correct, Kristen?
That is correct. That's exactly what I was going to say. We walked the buildings with the principals, and they identified the areas that would be best utilized for the purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Amy?
Sorry, I couldn't read my notes. I just wanted to say congratulations to Jay and to Tony and everybody who was involved in the reworking of the high school, middle school campus. The traffic flow is a lot safer. I think people may have forgotten that was new last year, and now it's even better with the extra space in the back for the buses to go around the corner. And if there are any parents watching with kids in those schools, please check your email for the map on how it works. Because if you follow the arrows and do everything right, it's smooth. It's way better than it used to be. And I'm so grateful and so impressed. I think that's the end of that project, correct, Jay? We're not implementing any of the other recommendations that were in that report. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. But well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you, Jay, and thanks for being back out there doing traffic duty in the morning.
Oh, my
See
pleasure.
you and Mr. Faust. Okay, next up, we'll do a reopening update.
All right. All right, and you can see that?
No.
No, I'm glad I asked. Sorry. Sorry about this. How about now? All right. All right. So this has become like a every meeting thing. As usual, I'll run through a bunch of slides, share some basic information, and take questions either during or after the slides. So overall, it's been absolutely fantastic having the students back. I think that was universally agreed upon, that it was just great. In a weird way, it was like having a first day again yesterday. So different, but it's just great to see all the kids back. Considering that we're in the uncharted territory that we're in, I think across the board, we're doing a great job. I know it doesn't always feel like that. And I think I can speak for all staff who are just, overwhelmed, exhausted, trying to figure it out as we go. But for day 5, we are doing a lot of things exceptionally well. The in-person across the board, I think, is going great. Obviously, I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. We've been doing that for, we've got the in-person pretty much down pat. For the students who were or are in person, after the first day, I was crossing one of the students and I asked about the masks, and he said, they're not fun, but they're not awful. And I think that kind of summed it up, that they're not as big a deal as I would have expected. I'm always amazed at the resiliency of our students and with our staff. We have been very thankful that it hasn't been, 90 degrees and super humid. So that certainly helped us. But so again, not fun, but not awful. Transportation, I can't thank Anita Patel enough. She put in and continues to put in countless hours into transportation. I mean, working entire weekends with AA to fine tune the routes, etc. And that's really been very, very successful. And we're down to, I think she said today, about 28 issues. 28 issues on the 5th day of school has to be some sort of record. It has to be. I also want to thank our technology team. Like everybody else, they're completely swamped. They've put out over 2,000 devices to families and paired the provision of those devices with a great deal of support. At the same time, trying to support our staff who are using technology in different ways, day in, day out. And I just couldn't be more thankful for the work that they're doing. In terms of successes, I obviously have talked to a few. The staff efforts and their ability to take on every single challenge that's been thrown our way has really been fantastic. Our students have been engaged no matter what model students are in. I think anybody on the staff side would not argue, but say, it's far from perfect, but every day we're getting better. The flexibility and continuous improvement that they have put into practice is just second to none. I just couldn't be more proud of the team as a whole. And I think it's important to realize that what is in our plan and what we are trying to do is among the more ambitious plans and the plans that are best for students that I personally have seen. I'm not putting us above any other district, but in comparison to what is being done across the state in many areas, I'm very proud of what we're trying to do here in Grafton. In terms of challenges, I could easily list 200. The ones that really jump out and have been continuous for us is that staffing balance between the models and the schedules. I'll speak to all 3 of these, but that staffing balance is a challenge. the fact that our staff is unquestionably maxed out on day 5, and I and the leadership team, in working with the staff and school committee, needs to figure out ways to provide time for planning and collaboration. And I'll speak to that as well. And then remote issues, these, again, just because they're expected doesn't make them any less important, nor does the fact that every district is struggling with remote issues, from schedules to connectivity on the school end. It could be on the student end, clarity of programming and expectations. Obviously, remote hybrid and remote learning academy is, we're 5 days into this grand experiment. And it's working, but we're working very hard to make it better every single day. And I'll speak to that. At the last meeting, we talked about the percentage of students in the different models. Rather than break out all 3, I focused on the percentage of students. This was as of last week, so it will be very close. The percentage of students in the Remote Learning Academy K through 12. So you can see, obviously, we have 26% kindergartners at North Grafton Elementary School, 31 at South Grafton. Obviously, that in 2nd grade, we go to North Street Elementary School on the north side and Millbury Street in the south. And then they merge together at the middle level. Way back in, I guess it was June, when we put out that initial survey, you may recall it was between, I think it was about 16% indicated at that time, way back when, 16% were thinking of, parents were thinking of having their children go full remote. As July, beginning of August happened, everything progressed. You saw more of a spike nationally. We expected it to jump to, we were thinking about 25%, and it just continued to jump all the way through August. And this is where it's leveled off. So we're over 30% K through 6, and a little less at the secondary level. So it's not what we planned for, but we're adjusting as quickly as we can. In terms of teacher planning and collaboration, it is absolutely essential. That's the development of lessons, how we coordinate all of the services that we provide to students, especially with 3 models. With 1, it was still incredibly important. Now with 3 different models and different variations on those models, it's just more important than ever. And on top of that, any student with special needs, be it an IEP, a 504 plan, English language learner, a myriad of other issues that typically we're getting on a daily basis, getting teachers together. Oftentimes when students are in related arts classes, and those teams of teachers are talking about and coordinating, talking about students, talking about student needs, and then coming up with a plan for coordination of services to meet those needs. Now doing 3 things at once, trying to drink out of a fire hose, that time really isn't available to staff right now. And that's a huge challenge. And obviously, I want to make it very clear, while I don't have a clear recommendation yet as to how we handle that and how we provide time, I want to make sure that need is very clearly communicated to school committee. With the early release days that we had scheduled were from the original calendar back pre-COVID. We scheduled, it's roughly about one day every month and a half, say, for an early release, your typical half days for planning. So those are still in the existing calendar. So I don't know if we look to add to those, if we move away from those and we have 1 day a week that's an hour, 2 hours shorter. We might be able to do some things internally that we can look at, but it's a real need for us. On the list of things that really shouldn't have surprised me, but they do, is the need for the time. While I knew it would be there, I probably underestimated just how much that's actually needed for all staff. This simply drives that home again. We're facing this unprecedented situation. We're asking teachers to take on more responsibilities than ever before, an increased workload. Again, coordinating with teachers, even if a teacher is an in-person teacher, they're still coordinating with remote hybrid, with the Remote Learning Academy. There's a lot of coordination that needs to take place in order for the product to be high quality and great for kids. And that's my worry. We have less prep time than ever before. And I only foresee that becoming more challenging as we move into the late fall and into the winter. We really don't have subs this year. We certainly don't have day-to-day subs. We have literally 3 or 4 people who are going to be building-based subs, and that's like 1 person per school building. As opposed, we don't have like a team of 4 for each school. We literally have 4 for the entire district. That is a drop in the bucket at best. We're very concerned, given that our staffing is spread so thin, and we're pulling it off, but boy, is it thin. If people get sick in any way, and I'm thinking even just, your typical colds, you've got the regular seasonal flu, what have you, we're so thin at that point, and we're going to have to cut into that very limited prep time that we have that's contractual even, and be asking teachers to cover for other teachers just to keep us afloat, if you will. So that limited time we have is definitely going to be more threatened than we've ever had to face previously. And then technology and remote issues that I talked about, these are the same issues that you're going to see, statewide. I think compared to many districts, we're actually, knock on wood, doing very well. But schedules and staffing, we've never provided remote instruction as we're trying to provide now. It's going to take, we're working very, very hard on it on a daily basis and sometimes nightly basis to coordinate all those schedules, figure out what works best for students, what works best for parents, especially of our younger students. So coordinating those schedules and the corresponding staffing, especially in the remote world, is huge for us. Nationally, you may have heard that the Commissioner of Education in Mass talked about how nationally they've addressed the problem with the massive number of Chromebooks that were held up on the United States border. Those orders have been released, and districts are starting to come in. We're still expecting the order to come in for the additional Chromebooks. We're saying mid-October. That's not set in stone one way or the other, but that right now is our best guess. I talked earlier about the outdoor access points. Those should be up and functional in the next couple of weeks. I forget the actual date that it was rescheduled for, but it's soon. We've been working with our related arts teachers, trying to figure out what schedule works best. That in the related arts, it's a unique section of our programming where related arts is obviously going to have interplay with remote hybrid, with Remote Learning Academy, and in person. So that's been very complex to figure out what the scheduling will look like, what the programming will look like. Kristen in particular has been working with our related arts department to narrow down exactly what we're doing, how we're doing it, and continually improve. And then another big one for us was over the first 3 days, which felt like 3 weeks, we were experiencing, along with everybody statewide and nationally, issues with Google Meets, a platform much like Zoom. Google Meet put out upgrades, I think it was last Thursday evening, and that upgrade definitely addressed many of our needs. So we're trying to now figure out, does that actually work for us? What doesn't work? And fine tune that as a tool for us. And then we're focusing, as I said, on the struggle is trying to focus on what feels like hundreds of things, maintaining that focus, and dividing and conquering, but still coordinating the communication around all of the different moving pieces, which has been a huge challenge for us. In a big picture way, our most significant focus has gone on Remote Learning Academy, getting that up and running, getting it tailored to be the program experience that we want it to be, first grade all the way through 12th, and then the hybrid remote program, trying to how we're going to coordinate that most effectively to work in partnership with the in-person week. So that's a unique relationship where we don't want to have gaps. We don't want to have holes in the programming. So those are the two things we've been focusing on the most over the last couple of days. And all the while maybe I've sounded a little negative, but it's been very positive. I can't thank our staff enough. I feel like I try to thank the staff on a regular basis, and it's just not even close to enough. They have met this challenge head on and have done just a beautiful job. This is a photo of a class over at North Street, and the kids didn't pose for it. They're just kind of up and running. And aside from the masks and obviously the social distancing, which they're kind of used to, they've just kind of hit the ground running, and they're doing a fantastic job. So many positives, a great deal of work. And again, I do believe we're getting better every single day, which is critical. And with that, I think and I put up a calendar, just if the committee wants to talk calendar, we certainly can. And with that, I can take any questions you may have.
Liz?
I was trying to wait. I feel like I'm the first one too often.
It's okay. We get to everybody. So we always need someone to go first.
Regarding the early release, what were you thinking in terms of timing, and were you thinking a particular day of the week, every week, or what did you find?
We talked about a host of things. I don't have a recommendation for the school committee tonight. I'm very cognizant of the fact that we've got this, again, I keep saying double-edged sword, but we have, parents maxed out with the hybrid, remote. I get it, a ton of pressure and daycare issues, et cetera, on the parent end. And I'm trying to balance that with the creation and the sustaining of a quality product on our end being I am a parent in town and deal with some of those things, but in terms of the educational piece. So I don't know what we've talked about. If we had I'm making this up, every Wednesday you have, rather than the full half day where kids leave school before lunch, I would prefer, and I think we as an administrative team would prefer to feed the kids if possible. We do have students who, struggle with food issues, attaining food. So to feed the students and say, dismiss early by an hour and a half, 2 hours, et cetera, something like that every week was one thought. We're certainly going to exhaust avenues internally to look if we can make some internal changes to free up time for people to work together, but that's hard when we're doing things with one model, never mind with three. So I think based on either the feedback from the school committee tonight or in the coming week, I'm jumping ahead, but when we talk about future agenda, I could see, I'm not ready to do this yet, but could see working with with Laura and looking to create a recommendation on my end and set up a meeting prior to the October 13th. Whatever's put in place, if there's any change calendar wise, we'd obviously want to give as much lead time for preparation as possible. But I guess tonight, I'm sorry I'm talking so much, Liz, but I want to put it out there that we have the need, and I don't see the need going away. And but I'm not yet sure exactly how to best address it.
And did this initially just come from a lot of the teachers who were just saying that they're exhausted, they have no time?
That was the fundamental piece. A lot of the scheduling is also, they're overwhelmed. No question about it. I've been doing this long enough, not forever, but since I was 21, and I have a pretty good feel for when things are, is it a couple bad weeks and we're just going to be able to get over this hump and we're good to go? I don't see that happening. I think we'll get better and better, and I know we'll get better and better, and our teachers will not only improve but figure out what works and what doesn't work. But I don't see how we can sustain it with and deliver a high quality program with I don't even know the exact number, but let's say 5 or 6 half days in the entire year, with really no time to do the behind the scenes work. Scheduling with the 3 models is exceptionally challenging. I'll give you one example. Something that seemed like a really fairly simple change was with the Remote Learning Academy, especially K-6. We have at the different schools different times for lunches. So that parent who might be home with 3 kids, 4 kids, 2 kids, whatever, more than one, is having to help each individual child to some degree, and then provide help with lunches, but they're all at different, or most are at different times. You would think we could pretty easily just come up with one uniform time. And I'm actually moved to do that, but then we quickly found out that individual school teachers, say, whatever, first grade at North Grafton, their schedule has so little time available in it for them to prep in any way or to plan, never mind to connect with other teachers at that same grade level, which is critical. So when I was thinking I would just make all the Remote Learning Academy elementary lunches at the same time, sounds pretty easy. And so I moved to do that and quickly found out by doing so, I was wiping out what little planning time existed on a daily basis, about 30 minutes for that first grade teacher to meet virtually or in person with the other first grade teachers. So if I was to just, from my position, just impose that schedule change, I would have eliminated all planning time between that teacher and the other teachers in that grade level, which is just not good for the teacher, it's not good for the grade level, and it's not good for kids. So we put that on hold. My bright idea, we quickly stepped back and said, all right, we're just going to keep it as it is for now. And we're looking at that. We've looked at it every day since to see what we can manage. But so they're holding on to what little planning time they've been able to kind of make happen. But like 30 minutes here and there is not even every day. It isn't long-term, it isn't going to suffice.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that too, because one of the things I was thinking about. I know at NGS, I think they have, like, at least the first grade team, I think they have a Friday morning meeting or something where they all get together. And I think that was when the kids were all at recess, and obviously they can't do that now. So yeah, thank you for adding that. That does sound like a added difficulty. So thank you.
I just wanted to jump in, sorry guys, but it concerned me when you started this presentation saying our teachers were maxed out. 2 weeks ago, I said when we signed the MOU, if issues came up that we wanted to know about them as soon as possible, so we would have time to work on them and think about options. So I'm in favor of obviously thinking about options if that means a couple more. And I think we would probably change those original half days, maybe if we had more, and get rid of the Friday half days or something, or putting them to another day. So there wouldn't be like 2 half days a week, right?
You're right. And again, that's just one idea.
Right, I know it's just one idea.
And even that has to be, I mean, nothing, I sound less optimistic than I intended tonight. And really, in the grand scheme of things, things are going really well. Very few decisions are just straightforward. So if we were to have early release of any kind on a regular basis, we've got to work through it with any of our providers of services of whatever kind, because they are now spread
very thin.
With smaller groups, and they're spread among the different models. Their schedules are ridiculous. So even cutting out 2 hours, while it benefits in many ways, it benefits many of our staff, or it would benefit, it might work against us in other ways. So that's what we're already trying to kind of work through, is what would potentially, what are some options that would work as well as possible for the entire GPS community.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm open to brainstorming and thinking of solutions. I don't think you're being pessimist, but I think the pessimistic, I think point of our meetings is to help and to look at challenges and to work together to come up with some ideas. So it sounds like, it doesn't seem like you're harping on things, but we need to know this to try to work to make it better and prepare parents too, that there might be a change in the schedule and we don't know what that is yet. So I'm sorry I jumped in early on this, but we are on the topic. So if anybody has other questions, I see Amy.
Yeah, so what you just said about letting parents know, I wonder if it would be wise, because I'm looking at the list of attendees tonight and I'm so impressed to see so many staff and teachers who have been working all day. They've been in the schools 5 days. They've been prepping 10 days before that. And here they are watching us talk about this, and just know, all of you, that you're so appreciated. And we know how difficult this is. And I'm personally very, very impressed at how well it's gone. But I think it might be worth letting parents know that this is up for discussion, because I think parents tend to see a communication and say, okay, this is law now. This is how it's going to be. And that calendar is one of those things that every time we make a change, we have to communicate it 90 times. So it might be a good idea to give them a heads up now that there's going to be a change. We're going to do the best we can to make it impact parents as minimally as we can, but it's so important for the kids and it's so important for the staff. I know a handful of teachers outside of the district, and they're posting to Facebook tonight and saying it's day 5 and I'm exhausted. And that's hard to see. It's hard to take. So we definitely want teachers to have the breathing room, to be able to have the prep time, to be able to talk to each other, and even just to take a little pressure off, because it's a lot. They must get so many parent emails. I can't even imagine.
No.
But everybody's doing such a great job. And like you said, every day it's getting better, which is so great to see at every level. So thank you for that.
No, they've been fantastic.
All right. So just to stay on the same topic, who's ultimately making coming up with the idea of how to provide more time for the teachers?
I would make a recommendation to the school committee.
So I know we're thinking the 13th, and I'm kind of afraid if we wait until the 13th, that's a month of where I don't want the teachers to get burnt out. It's a very overwhelming task, everything that they're doing right now. So
yeah, Jen, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you because Jay said that he and I would come up with the time to meet before the 13th.
Okay.
To discuss this.
And then I'm just wondering if it's not going to be enough time for parents after that to get.
Well, we'll give them time. We'll make the decision and it won't be immediately. So hopefully with teachers, they'll know it's coming and maybe it'll ease a little bit.
And then I had one more question, was I know we're trying to figure out how to provide the support for the IEPs. Well, in the meantime, what are we doing, or what's the plan instead of just coming up with a plan? I'm assuming we had to be providing services in the meantime.
Oh, yeah, we definitely are.
Okay.
Yep, they have since our first day.
Right. And I think what you were saying, Jay, was they're spread thin. So for instance, we have one occupational therapist. They can't see kids in groups anymore. So they need every hour, every day to make sure they can meet all the kids that they need. So cutting an hour or two.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I was confusing in that sense. Yeah, I mean, everybody's schedule is maxed out, but certainly all of our service providers. And it's just not, it was challenging even pre-COVID, but now having to jump into the remote setting, get that working, stop that, go to somebody in person. They're already maxed out and their schedules are working, but they're super, super tight. So if we were to take out time weekly, every other week, whatever it is, I'm just trying to make it clear that there's an impact there that we'd have to figure out. So it's just a challenge. It's complex for sure.
Rahul, I saw your hand.
Jay, I had a parent come to me asking a question. She might have emailed you also. I thought I'll ask here also. They're from South Grafton and their kid was given a teacher from North Grafton. So they were wondering, what if the school's open and how would the shuffling go then? Let's say in January, we are back to normal schedule, and how would that go in that case?
I mean, the student would go, if you said it was South, the student would go to their neighborhood school. Well, without a doubt, we're going to have to reshuffle all of the remote hybrid teachers and all of the remote learning academy teachers. I would assume we would keep students together as best we can, but that probably wouldn't be a massive, among many concerns. I'm not sure that would be at the top of the list.
Right. Okay.
Jay, regarding the Remote Learning Academy, I know some concern has been expressed about the size of some of the classrooms, and I know obviously we've done our best and we can't hire another 50 teachers. But has that been looked at all in terms of whether or not that's an issue that is concerning, or?
Yeah. Oh, it's certainly been looked at, and we're approaching it two different ways. It's not how we schedule the students, which this is, I hope I don't lose people, but we don't want a group of whatever it is, 30, 40 students together. That's almost universal. Could you have some kind of morning meeting and do some kind of big group activity to start the day or something? Sure. But we want those groups broken typically into thirds, where we're going to have the reading, the math, and have basically those groups, that bigger group, broken into 3 different groups. That's been hard to communicate. And so we're working on the communication part. We're also shifting some staffing, which isn't easy to do, but we're in the process of shifting some staffing to help alleviate it's really in practice not large class sizes. It's the fact that teacher is basically teaching 3 classes within one big group. So today we focused on shifting some staffing to alleviate that. So that in concert with better communication and definition of the schedules so that we have rotation. Those are probably the 2 biggest things we're doing right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I just wanted to thank Anita. I know you did, Jay, but I was thinking, I think the bus transportation planning is one of the hardest parts of your job, and this is your first time doing it, and it was during COVID. So thank you so much for all your extra work, Anita, and for getting things running smoothly. I think you said 28 issues, Jay, which is
I mean, it'll grow tonight, I'm sure, but
yeah,
to be
after they hear that. But
eight and not 280 in the 5th day of school is, it's just remarkable. So thank you again. Anita's been fantastic. AA Transportation, Monica Ernwine and Kim have been great from AA. So it's a real team effort, and that's been a real highlight.
well, great job, and thank you, Anita, for all the extra hours, and all of you. I know there's so many successes. I've heard so many great things over this past week from parents and students, and feel very fortunate to be in this district. But I know it's thanks to all the faces on the screen, and of course, many faces in our audience and not here tonight. So thank you. And like you said 2 weeks ago, we're going to keep assessing and moving forward. And Amy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had another question and I was waving. Can I ask Kristen, where are we with hiring? Are we all set now? Are we still looking? What's the situation? She's smiling. That must be good.
So we still do, we still have an open position at the middle school for world language. We're in the process of hoping to finalize a hire. We've been in discussions with a candidate now since Friday. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to finalize that hire. We have, in terms of instructional staff, we have some long-term sub positions that are now opening up. Our typical long-term sub for either maternity or paternity leaves, things like that. We are also finalizing our custodial hires because we did have some mid-shift hires for custodians. And we have 2 nurse assistant hirings that we are finalizing this week as well. And I have 4 paraprofessionals tomorrow. So we are in good shape. Yes, it's been a very busy hiring season.
Wow, I'm so impressed. That's a lot. That is a lot. Wow. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And no monitors, right? No bus monitors? That didn't happen, right?
Only to cover students with an IEP that has it on their IEP, but no specific for bus monitors, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
And James, I hate to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add as somebody who's actually been going through it as a student.
I'd say it's off to a good start, and most of the people I've talked to, they said it's going a lot smoother than they expected, and I've spent 3 days in person now, and it's been all right. And then the remote as well has been, I'd say we're better off now than we were in the spring in terms of remote learning. It's a lot easier for the teachers, and the students are following along a lot easier, and we all know what to do and when to do it.
Great, thanks for that. Okay, all right then, thank you, Jay, and we'll get to hear from Tracy next with the teaching and learning update.
I am happy to do that. May I share my screen?
Yes, you may. You should be able to. Can you not?
Oh yeah, here it is.
Oh, okay. But thanks for asking.
You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so I was excited to have the opportunity to speak to PD. And I wanted to kind of circle back to some work we started this summer with culturally responsive teaching and the brain. As you might recall, the district offered a Twitter book talk. And essentially what that is that teachers become Twitter users and they engage in a real-time conversation about a book. And we had our own hashtag so that we could follow each other's comments. And it was really probably the highlight of my summer to read the teachers' responses to the book, because I could tell it was really shaping their thinking in regard to their practice. And a part of our work was a little bit beyond just reading the book and responding to discussion prompts and each other in terms of our own thoughts about our practice. But I had also asked teachers to indicate to me how it is that they would see a change in their practice. What I was hoping for teachers to come to see is that, according to Hammond in her study, culturally diverse and linguistically diverse students really need to build a certain amount of resilience and academic mindset in the classroom to either kind of undo any gap that may exist or really elevate their own achievement. And in order to build that resistance and that academic mindset, really teachers need to approach our culturally diverse students with a cognitive and affective approach. That really is what impacts achievement. And so what I was looking for when I asked teachers to kind of redo lessons or give me a sense of how their practice was going to change was really that mindset, that thinking. And I had many, many great examples. I just happened to pull this one from an outstanding math teacher at Grafton High School. And she talks about how going forward, she's really going to change how she assesses her students. She's going to provide more choice by allowing students to complete assignments of their preference. She's going to look really at proficiency based on a standards-based rubric so that she can track their mastery over a course of time. She's going to look at grading based on progress towards mastery as opposed to just looking at idiosyncrasies in terms of their answers to math questions. She's really looking at their progress toward mastery using a standards-based rubric. And she feels very confident that after reading this book and redesigning how she looks at assessment, that students are going to have an opportunity to show their growth and proficiency. So this was a super, but yet pretty representative response to reading the book. So I think we are really moving in a great direction in terms of addressing the needs of our culturally and linguistically diverse students. In addition to that, the district put out a host of professional learning opportunities. And I have simply given you a snapshot in this slide, as well as the next one of the calendar that was offered to our staff. And I first want to say that this was a joint effort. I can tell you that Neil and I worked very closely in terms of the Edgenuity trainings and timing around that. And Bob Wall and Sharon Buckley were huge helps to me in terms of identifying and deciding what to offer in terms of SEL. So there's a couple of things I want to highlight about this calendar that are particularly exciting for me. On Tuesday, September 1st, we were able to hear from Tom Driscoll from EdTech Teacher, who talked to teachers about how to design learning in a remote environment, what makes sense to do synchronously, what makes sense to do asynchronously. And then he transitioned into some fantastic apps and instructional strategies that support students who are learning at home. And we were very fortunate to get Tom. EdTech Teacher is a tremendously successful organization. And as you might imagine, they are very, very busy folks. And so we were thrilled to have him. Then on September 3rd, we had Tom DeCord, who actually is, I think, the CEO of EdTech Teacher. He spoke with our teachers about how to provide feedback and assess students online so that we're getting a good sense of where they are in terms of their mastery of content. Again, it was I had a lot of great feedback, and we were very happy to have EdTech Teacher. The offering on Friday, which was interesting, it was one of our social emotional offerings, and it is essentially a first responders workshop, helps teachers understand how to assess student well-being, look for signs of distress, and then decide when to refer students for maybe a specialized assessment or some more structured support. So that was a very popular, despite it being voluntary, it was a very popular offering. I think we had about, between the elementary staff and the secondary staff, I think we had about 135 teachers attend that. And then you can see in the afternoons during that week, we did quite a bit of work around Edgenuity to support not only our remote learning academy, but also our hybrid remote teachers in understanding how to use Edgenuity as a tool and then how to customize courses so that they were kind of in line with our Grafton curriculum and our priorities in our scope and sequences. And then the following week, you're going to see that we have some more with Edgenuity. And then, as you can see on Friday, September 11th, we have 2 more offerings that are, I think, pretty essential. Managing the 21st Century Classroom was provided by Edgenuity. And one of the reasons I felt that that would be pretty important for us to see is it talked a lot about how do we manage, what does classroom management look like in a remote environment? And how do we deal with academic integrity? And really, how do we support kids? Because we're now learning in such a different environment and in such a different way. And then you can see we offer 2 cultivating a social and emotional connection across our schools. That was a huge success as well. And really what that was an offering really that just built upon our 2 years of work with SEL and making sure that that was, coming to life in our remote environment. And finally, we had another social emotional option, which was called Ready to Learn. And that was, I thought, was kind of neat because it built off a lot of our work this summer with culturally responsive teaching. It talked a little bit about how do you build an equitable classroom and employ any trauma-informed strategies for those students who had been struggling through COVID. So again, this was a massive team effort. We were very proud of the different offerings and the way in which it supported teachers who might be facing something, an aspect of their teaching that might be brand new to them given this new environment. And so what happened with the Edgenuity, I'm sorry, I take that back. What happened with the EdTech teacher workshops is that they were capped at a certain number of teachers. So we decided to do a train the trainer model. So I invited teacher leaders or a representative of the grade level K through 12 to attend. And they had the opportunity to attend all 3 sessions. And then if they so choose on the October 9th PD day, I will stipend them to create a presentation so that they can use part of that day to teach their colleagues what they learned from EdTech teacher, and then give them ample amount of time to apply that new learning to some of their lesson design. And with that, that's pretty much PD in a nutshell as of right now. And I can take any questions.
Amy.
Thank you, Tracy. That was awesome. I'm so glad to see that everyone was able to make the best of the extra time that we gained by pushing the start of school off, which additionally helped us with the heat in the buildings, obviously. So I guess my question is, what else do teachers need? Do they know yet? Are they still getting comfortable? What have you heard from them? What additional training and tools do they need right now?
So I think probably becoming more familiar with Edgenuity and Florida Virtual School would probably be at the top of my list right now, and supporting, the training that we've already put out. How do we make that training even easier to digest and put into practice? I would say right off the top of my head, Amy, that would be the first thing I would say. What I'm now in the process of doing, because Jay and I talked about me kind of taking the lead on K through 6, the Remote Learning Academy. I'm now discussing with individual teachers what is working well, what is not. And I know once we talk about the challenges, any kind of training needs may surface. I also am thinking now, as I'm processing, as I'm thinking, Amy, I would absolutely tell you that we would have to do some more work with Google Meet. I think that Google Meets is doing a really great job of kind of tailoring the actual tool to support classroom teachers, but yet I don't think it's naturally intuitive right now for teachers. So what Neil and I have talked about is when things settle, is to kind of almost do a personalized PD for teachers. Go to them and talk to them about what's working and what's not working in Google Meet and how to support them to make sure that that tool is in fact going to be one that's really easy to use and gets them very connected to kids.
Wow, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Tracy, thank you so much. It's fantastic. I guess I do have one question as we're thinking about the calendar and giving teachers more planning time. With that, getting rid of those half PD days that we have in the calendar, how would that work? Would we be losing our training, or would we still be able to manage to help with that?
I don't think we'd be losing our training. I mean, according to the MOA, and Kristen can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, the teachers are allowed to determine, kind of guide themselves on those half PD days so that they are doing the planning and the collaboration they need. So we can certainly set it up as choice. We can certainly go to grade levels. There's lots of ways that we can build in some flexibility and still make sure that we're attending to people's needs.
Great. Thanks.
Okay.
I knew you could do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So future agenda and schedule planning. I know we had a lot of suggestions and recommendations from the last meeting. Jay and I took them. We're still working through thinking about the planning of how we can present given what's going on. In the last couple of weeks, we're a little crazy preparing for school. So Jay, I don't know if did you want to share I saw you put it in the drive. It's not finished by any means.
I put a PDF in the drive. I don't have it up this second.
Okay.
I'll
talk while you look. But I did also have a request come in from Heather Nato and Loria Brum. They have been nominated but not voted in yet to be co-chairs for CPAC. They wanted to come and introduce themselves to us. And if they weren't elected, they would yield their time to the other member who was up, which was Jacob Lackey. We didn't quite talk about what they would come and talk about yet for the 13th. They just wanted to see if they could get on the agenda. So I just want to let you all know that they reached out and happy to have them, or Jacob or whomever wins the election. So we're still fleshing out a little bit about what would be discussed.
Can you see that, Laura?
I can. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So,
Go
so
ahead.
we didn't have, obviously we haven't put anything in about CPAC. We were talking about a special education report. Theoretically, I'd have my goals ready. And what was the other piece? Oh, we should have I would assume that we're going to be able to talk about the Trane energy audit and probably a discussion, combine that Trane audit combined with the discussion about capital on the 13th as well.
Okay. And then we're moving forward. I know, Liz, you had asked for principals. We're trying to figure out how to get that, because that takes up there's a lot of principals. So we're just trying to figure out how to best get them in and what they could talk about now. And a few other things. So this is where we stopped, really. We had today and next meeting. And then I guess we're going to try to get another meeting on the calendar, though, Jay, is what you want to talk about the calendar.
Right.
So that'll depend on when you think you can come up with a recommendation. And then we can set up a doodle and people can let me know what day is best for them. As long as we have 2 days notice, we can get that on the calendar.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good.
Okay. Great. So just wanted to let you know if we heard, and if you have anything else you want us to think about and try to put in, let us know.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. And we do have approval of minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from September 8th, 2020 as presented.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
All righty, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, and now we're going into the budget.
FUN fun. All right, so Anita and I put
What
together.
was that?
I'm excited.
Okay. FUN fun. I see. You spelled it out. All I heard was the FU fun.
Oh, no. So Anita and I put together a few slides just to talk about kind of an overview of COVID funding, and I already messed it up on the first slide. It's really FY22 budget development, but we can also talk about 21 is still, obviously we don't have a finalized state budget for FY21. So both are in process, if you will. Okay, so for COVID funding, there are 6 basic buckets of which we as a town and or a district are going to receive some monies. So we've got FEMA, the CARES Act, CBRF grant, that's a coronavirus relief fund, a food security infrastructure grant, remote learning tech grant, and the ESSER grant. So we've talked about these before, but I don't think up to this point we've kind of laid them out for the committee. So I'll just quickly go through each one. With FEMA, we've put in for about 190,000 in reimbursements. For what is accepted, you get back 75% of what you put in for. So that's out there. The CARES Act, the town of Grafton received or is slated to receive 1.6 million. We've put in one portion of that and received 764,000 for that round 1 funding. Round 2 is coming up. So we've expended to date about 468,000. This is one of those that's really tricky in that as it stands today, it expires at the end of December of 2020. If we were purchasing, say, just PPE, we could, by the end of December, we could take an educated guess as to what we need for PPE and we could order accordingly. Then the money, you pay for it, the money stops, and we're good to go. The problem is, it's especially tough when it's around staffing, which the CARES Act funds a bunch of the additional staffing hires that we have made to be ready for the current reality that we're facing. So if those monies go away at the end of December, we don't have any money to pay for that staffing in January, February, and beyond. That's a real problem. And it's a problem not just for Grafton, but it's a problem for every district in the state. So that's at every meeting and phone call, this comes up. And to date, there has been no resolution on it. The next one, the third one, is that's the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant. That's also known as the per pupil grant. I think it was per pupil. Anita will know the exact number probably, but about $270 per kid. Grafton, just a straight formula. Grafton, based on that per pupil amount, is allocated $687,000. That can be used for a wide range of COVID-related expenses. That's what we use to purchase the tents, learning platforms, furniture, sterilizing lights, all kinds of PPE, any kind of PD that we develop around that's COVID-related, additional teaching staff, and additional nursing staff. Again, this one, like the CARES Act, is set to terminate at the end of December of 20. So two of the larger grants are both expiring at the end of December. The Food Security Infrastructure Grant, that basically allows us to purchase COVID-related materials, supplies that are connected to our food services. So again, any PPE that's specific for food services, we purchased with Whitson's tablets for the mobile point of sale system that we're using, any kind of packaging for in-house meals, but also for our meals program for families in need, food carriers, beverage carriers, dollies within our cafeterias. We've got the students spread out, and we've got to have the food basically delivered to each of the students. Any of those expenses have gone to that Food Security Infrastructure Grant. This one, unlike the two previous grants, this one expires at the end of June of next year. So that's great for us. And then we've got the remote learning technologies grant. That was about $80,000 in the grand scheme of things. We're thrilled to get $80,000, but obviously when we're putting out more than 2,000 devices, $80,000 doesn't go too far, but we're happy to have it. So with those monies, we used it for iPads, cases, some Chromebooks, and hotspots, mobile hotspots for some families that didn't have connectivity. And last but not least, we've got the ESSER grant. That also in the grand scheme of things isn't a tremendous amount of money. That's about $80,000. And we've got until the end of September next year to spend that. We've held on to those monies up to this point and haven't expended them. We just think, while it's not a tremendous amount of money, it gives us a little bit of a safety net to be utilized as we go forward. So that's an overview of those 6 areas of money related to the COVID. That timeline is a big issue, and we're wondering, as everybody else is there going to be another round of financial support for districts related to COVID, or is this just one time? Those six buckets are as they are, and we're not going to receive more monies. Obviously, if we knew that, we would pace out our spending differently. We would probably think about our approach differently. So that's been a challenge. Obviously, what the future holds, we have no idea. We're going to keep with the hybrid and remote learning academy for the entire year. Will we be forced as the district or as the state to go full remote? So we've tried to plan for every future iteration of what education might look like in town, but they're really just based on best guesses at this point. So I think we're doing all the planning that we can, but we don't have any information related to that planning that anybody listening or the committee would have right now. The FY21 state budget has still not been set. Anita was saying, I think she saw something that said it might be January. So that's for 21, and we're obviously in 21. So if 21's backed up that far, I can't even begin to imagine what the timeline for the FY22 state budget is going to be. And obviously that hasn't been set. So a lot of the work that I'll talk about in terms of the town budget process and the school district budget process, I'm going to put out some basic dates. It's really nothing but guesswork at this point. So in terms of the municipal timeline, this was released a couple weeks back, where when I look at the timeline, the piece that seems to have the most certainty would be around capital requests. So I think the capital process is going to stay true to what it basically has been in the past. After that, it's really speculative. So November 1st, they've asked that all capital request forms or plans be submitted to the CIPC. As I mentioned earlier, on the 13th, we'll have at least an initial discussion about our plan, our 5-year plan. And we'll obviously take off the work that we've already done and look to put more things on that plan. Revenue forecasts are going to be provided to the Select Board and Finance Committee in mid-November. And at least theoretically, mid-January, the FY22 recommended operating budget would be presented to the Select Board. So prior to that, we'd obviously have to have a finalized budget ready to go. So in a second, I'll talk about our timeline, but based on that timeline, which is in concert more or less with what we've seen in past years, we'd be looking to have a school budget finalized roughly by usually mid-December, and then we dedicate a meeting in December to our budget, take that feedback, make some finalized changes over the break, and then when we come back from that break in early January, that's usually where we ask the committee to go ahead and vote for whatever that recommended budget is. You can see in February, they'd have a FY22 recommended capital plan fully completed and submitted, and then March and April have the typical public meetings with Finance Committee, potentially Select Board, and work through the 22 budget. So that's on the municipal side. Our timeline, as I mentioned, very speculative, but if we go off of the municipal timeline, we need to have a draft of the FY22 budget done in December. When we come back from the break, have the committee vote on that recommendation. You may recall the past couple of years, the town administrator was okay with us not voting at the very beginning of January. We pushed it back, and I think it was typically by the beginning of February we had a vote, so somewhere in there. And then again, going up the municipal calendar, we would have our meetings with Finance Committee and potentially Select Board, and it would all culminate with the town meeting in May of 21. In terms of our challenges, I've talked about the December 31st expiration date for CARES and Coronavirus Relief Fund funding. That's a big issue. Funding information is going to trail that typical timeline that we have. I mean, right now, we still don't have all the information we need for 21, and we're well into the 21 year. So if you've been on the committee, you'll recall that in the early spring, and Grafton as a whole finalizes the town budget fairly early. We finalize it before the state comes out with their finalized budget in a non-COVID year. So I'm concerned that the timeline is going to be greatly affected by funding that's simply out of our control. Uncertainty regarding the educational model, that's going to be an issue statewide. It's certainly going to be an issue for us. So in December, we're going to have to make decisions, funding decisions for FY22 that are, they're speculative. They're based on our best thinking and our best guess. But as you know, things could change in the winter. They could change at any time. And I haven't worked through that. I haven't had any conversations with individual school committee members at this point about the budget. It's crossed my mind. I don't want to create numerous budgets, but it may look different in planning than it has in the past, where it's been still complex and very thorough, but it was one plan. Now we could be planning for a few different scenarios. That's going to be a huge challenge. So that uncertainty is massive in terms of planning. Obviously, it ties directly to staffing, to PPE requirements. If what our reality is now, if that goes into FY22, with that staffing, the funding, the existing staffing, that goes away. So it's just going to get super messy depending on how this plays out in terms of the model that is utilized and how we move forward. And then to add to all of that, we do have all bargaining units currently on a 1-year contract for FY21. So at some point this year, with everything I just mentioned, we're going to have to negotiate for FY22 with what feels like 100 times the number of variables that we typically deal with. So Kristen and I haven't even begun to brainstorm that, but that's a reality for us in terms of challenges for 21. And that's all the slides I have, and Anita and I can take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions? Liz?
I think the Jen.
Okay. Sorry, do we have any idea if we think, do you think they would consider letting the budget go further out with the state being so delayed, or?
Yeah, they being the town.
Yeah.
I haven't had that discussion. With Carter, I haven't had that discussion yet. I'm sure select board's going to have to discuss it. Not only does it have a huge impact on school planning and funding, but also on the municipal side, they're going to be faced with the same concerns. So I'm sure they're going to have to discuss it. I'm sure they're going to have to look at the charter, and I'm speaking outside any area of expertise in terms of what the select board and finance committee might choose to do in terms of the future. But we're going to have to look at something. Unless we want to go forward at this point, it's going to be just it's going to be purely speculative in December. I just don't see another scenario that's 2 months away.
Yeah, because I'm just more afraid of you doing more work than you need to when you already have a lot of work to do already. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm just wondering if they would consider.
No, I very much appreciate that. We'll definitely work with the town administrator, I'm sure with the select board, I'm sure with the finance committee to get a real clear direction before we do it. We're certainly not going to come up with, creating one solid budget is hard enough. Doing that for numerous scenarios would be incredibly time consuming. So we're going to make sure that we're on the same page with everybody and have a plan in place before we put that work in.
Liz?
No, I am good. Jay actually just answered my question in this last couple of remarks, so thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Great. Yeah, Jay, I definitely share Jen's concerns. I'm concerned about what's going to happen in 2022. I don't know if this is magically going to be over. I think we're all optimistic. Somebody has some feedback I can hear. Can anybody else? Thank you. Now I lost my train of thought, but I mean, I'm definitely concerned about coming up with multiple plans and multiple budgets. And I'm very concerned though about our money running out at the end of December for the staffing. And forgive me for not knowing this, is that state funding that we've gotten or federal funding or a combination of both?
Really a combination of both.
I know we talked about this, feels like a lifetime ago, about trying to advocate or who we should reach out to. I have more faith in our state government than I do in our federal government right now, but and that's not that far away. And if we can't afford to keep our staff, our whole kind of house of cards crumbles.
Have you or any of the committee members seen anything from MASC on the topic yet?
No, I haven't at all, which is what kind of concerns me, that nobody's really talking about it. I mean, we can raise it.
Yeah, my guess is everybody had that same delay, has the same start. You know, they're just trying to get through 2 weeks. It's definitely something that's been very, very focused on by MASS, and usually they're in different ways in partnership with MASC. So
Yeah.
there may be certainly, I'd be very, very surprised if there's not communication that goes out from MASC and MASS that I as superintendent would be joining on to, and you guys as a select board, or I'm sorry, for a school committee would be signing on to as well. I mean, at every meeting that comes up, it's not, believe it or not, it's usually not like the first thing we talk about because everybody's just trying to just get things going. But it will rise to the top very
quickly.
very soon. It's got to.
Okay. Yeah, I know based on the meeting we were at last night, many people in our school committee world were pretty much tapped out as much like the staff is, and I think just trying to get through the past 2 weeks. So
yeah,
move on to the next challenge. And Liz, did you? Okay.
No, I didn't have anything.
All right. Well, thank you for that. We have a warrant.
I move the school committee approve warrant number 13, dated September 24th, 2020, an amount of $107,997.17.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
Alrighty, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries. Great. We only have one policy tonight. It's a second reading from the policy we viewed 2 weeks ago. I will try to share my screen, but I seem to have lost like my knowledge or ability to share. Oh, there we go. Okay. There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so this was just, we talked about it 2 weeks ago, the second reading of the IKA grading and assessment systems. Tracy did a great job of reworking this to make sure it really met how we were assessing our students. And this is just the final version of it. Do we have any more questions on this one? I don't actually think there were any questions or comments on it last time either. So it's just a second reading.
Yep, well done, Tracy.
And policy subcommittee. I mean, we helped.
Policy committee.
All right, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to accept section I instruction IKA grading assessment systems as a second reading.
Second.
Motion made seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Elizabeth Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Rati,
Alrighty, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries. All right, and we'll get this up on the website. And all the policies from 2 weeks ago are now up on the website in their respective sessions. I think there were some questions about that, and that was my fault. I was a little delayed in getting them over. So I apologize on that. Okay, moving on to member reports. Liz?
We haven't met yet, but the TA selection committee has been formed, and just letting everyone know our first meeting is next Monday, September 28th. So I will report what there is to report after that.
Ooh, exciting. That's fun.
That is exciting. Good luck, Liz.
Yeah, you'll do great. Anybody else? Amy?
The GSC, so the Grafton Sustainability Commission benchmarking report is finished. It, I believe, is being delivered to the select board tonight, but don't quote me on that. And they're going to decide how that's going to be made available to everyone. I'm happy to provide a copy to members of the committee. It is a public document, so I guess I have to provide it upon request anyway, but I know it'll be up on the town website at some point. So if anybody wants a sneak peek, you can shoot me an email or a message and I will send it to you.
Amy, sorry to interrupt, but would you be interested, or would the committee be interested in hearing at least the summary on the schools presented at a future school committee meeting by you? Or do you think it's just better that we read it?
It's short. It's short. The school section's short. It's a 30-page document, and there's 3 pages that have data on the schools that anybody can get anywhere.
Okay.
I mean, of interest to the committee will be looking at the charts to see the comparisons with the other districts. But if you guys look at the report and you want to discuss it, we can certainly do that.
Okay.
The next step for the committee is now going to be, I think I said this last time, but I'm going to say it again. We're not going to do anything more with the school side at the moment because everyone is obviously much too busy. So we're focusing on municipal operations. And the committee is going to be conducting interviews with staff as they can, asking questions, collecting data. And that's more examining operations and comparing what other communities are doing and, seeing how we're doing things well, efficiently. Maybe we can find other efficiencies that we're not taking advantage of at the moment. And that'll be something that we examine on the school side eventually, but now is not the time for that. So, and everybody was in agreement about that. So I'm glad I didn't have to fight too hard. So that's GSC. I don't know when our next meeting is, but I'll be there. Capital Improvement Plan Committee met without me with Select Board last week. And then tonight, the Select Board was discussing the warrant article for a bylaw change that I think is going to help. If it passes a town meeting, it's going to help streamline the process for capital requests. And you saw a little bit about that when Jay put up the slide that has the deadline and having it spelled out, the process, so that we all follow the same thing. I think there's going to be a standard form, Jay, that they use at the state level for putting in the capital requests. But I'm hoping that it's a little bit of just copying and pasting from what you already have.
Okay.
And if you need help with that, please let me know. Please reach out. I'm happy to take that off your plate. It's
Awesome.
not going to be that different from what you're doing. It's just going to be a slightly different format so we can compare against all the other departments.
Perfect. Thanks.
I don't think there's going to be a summit this year, a capital summit. I haven't heard anything about it. I don't think there's an appetite for it. But if I hear anything else on that, I will definitely let you guys know. And just so everybody else on the committee is aware, the Capital Summit is it's a gathering where the department heads would come in with the TA and they would kind of present their requests like in a big meeting. And that is not happening this year for what I suspect are obvious reasons. But yeah, and we're meeting with CIPC. We'll meet with CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, Thursday night. And I may or may not be there depending on how the Grafton Middle School virtual open house goes. If I can do both, I'll do both. If I can send Greg to that, because he's also on the committee, I'll send Greg to that and I'll do the open house with Katie. So we'll see. But yeah, busy times for everybody.
Thanks, Amy. And Liz and Amy and I went to a professional development last night for social media for school committee members. I sent out to the team just the handout that we were given. It was greatly done. I think we're all doing a great job on that on our front. There were really no red flags when I was listening. The one thing that I was always happy to be reminded of, and I think I should know this by now, but is that whenever we're out on social media or in the public, people see us as a school committee member first. And I always forget that because I see myself as a mom and I'm Laura. I dress up like Elsa at Christmas, and I forget sometimes that people see me first as a school committee member. So it's always good to be mindful of that when I am out about public and social media. Anyway, it was a great seminar, and Jen and Rahul, just if you do want to go, Tracy Novick, who presented, said she does them all the time, and I'll keep forwarding you information. They also said they were going to present MASC, being they, some Friday lunchtime things coming up. So I'll pass those along. I mean, they're on the website. You guys can see them yourselves. But when I find them, I try to pass them along as well. I've been loving these virtual events for them because in the past, I hadn't been able to go as much because it was always in some town that I'd never heard of at like 6 o'clock. So it was nice to kind of get a refresher. And it's good to have our people there from Grafton engaged. So it was good. And it was nice, as I kind of mentioned, it's really nice to just connect with other school committee members. Everybody's feeling it. I don't want to sing our praises too much, but we're not out there. People don't typically think about the school committee members, but we've all been through a lot as well. And it was kind of nice to just share and commiserate together. But that was a lot. Moving on to correspondence, I already mentioned that I got something from Heather Nato and Gloria Brum, and that was all I received. I don't know if anybody else had anything they wanted to share. And I don't think we need an executive session, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Mar, aye. Go Teachers.
what'd you say?
I said go Teachers.
Oh, go Teachers. Okay. With Spinny,
Aye.
Rahul Roti,
Alrighty, aye.
Laura Often, aye. All right. Well, good night, everybody. Take care of yourselves.